Welcome to We Are Soccer. All right, today I'm joined by host of the State of the Union podcast and Fox soccer analyst, the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Alexi Lalas. Alexi, thank you so much for joining, man. Welcome to We Are Soccer.
Thank you for having me. It is a pleasure and a privilege to be on the show. Thank you for reaching out, and I'm excited to talk some soccer. You got a wonderful, for those that are listening, you can't see, but you got a wonderful backdrop there. I know you guys are all over, the YouTubes and the this and the that. So there's audio, there's video, there's all that kind of stuff, but it's fun.
I appreciate it, man. Yeah, it's all soccer. It's all fun. Let's jump in, buddy. All right. So obviously this week, USA versus Mexico. It's a huge rivalry. What are your thoughts on the game that happened? 1-1 draw.
Yeah, so I think a lot of people like me were kind of scratching our heads as to how we were going to react to this. I'll be honest with you. If it's US-Mexico, I don't care what's happening. I'm in. I am there. Now, all US-Mexico matches aren't created equally. We all understand that. This was a midweek game, not a FIFA window. Obviously, not the full team for either of these sides. And yet there's, 60,000 people in Glendale, Arizona, that are coming out to cheer on, for the most part, Mexico. But it's an opportunity for us to see some players that, yes, we've seen, some that maybe we haven't seen, and that depth. But it is a weird moment. I don't know how you feel, but I think we're in a very weird moment of stasis here where, yeah, we want to assess it and we want to look at it and we want to pull things from it, except, we have an interim coach, we have no GM, we have no sporting director, and it doesn't look like that's going to change until the summer.
Yeah, you're not wrong. And I want to delve into that in a couple of minutes, but it was a strange game. Like you said, we were lacking some stars. I think the game lacked real quality on both sides. I was surprised how open it was for the first 30 minutes. There was mistakes that happened and led to goals. But I've heard a lot of people say, what was the point of the game? From my standpoint, I don't care. It's soccer. What's the point of any game, right? Let's jump in. Let's watch. It's entertainment. My question to you is, how has it changed over the years? Because it's grown. I know you said it's mostly Mexican fans there, right? And it was, but compared to maybe when you were playing, there's a lot, the balance has shifted and it's more American fans than prior, right? So how has it changed?
Well, we are able to be strategic in the games that we play and the competitive games. And look, this is why this next 3 years is going to be really interesting without that qualifying process. No hex, no octagonal, no anything like that. And, it's not a price. It's just the reality of qualifying for the World Cup. But over the years, US-Mexico has turned into, I think, the greatest international rivalry in soccer. You can debate me. That's fine. But the proximity of our countries, the connections that we have, both on the soccer field, but even maybe more so off the soccer field, our language, our cultures, our immigration, all of that kind of stuff leads to that rivalry that we have. And the two big dogs in CONCACAF. So yes, different games, like I said, are more competitive in terms of the results matter more. But this is still a US-Mexico game. Back in the day, and I think I talked about this last night on Twitter and on my State of the Union today. I think most of us that have played for the U.S., you realize very early, and many decades and generations of players have realized that there are going to be games against teams that you play in your home country in the United States, a country I feel is the greatest country in the world, that are going to be away games because of the reality of the makeup of our wonderful country and all of this incredible diversity that we have and all these different cultures. My dad's Greek. If Greece had come over and played and he were to go and watch it, he would probably be rooting for Greece, and I totally get that. But his son would be rooting for the U.S., and so that's that yearly and decadely type of progress that we have, where it's a battle for hearts and minds. And hopefully, as we go forward, that next generation and the second and third generation looks at the United States as their country. And it doesn't mean you're not incredibly proud of the history and the heritage that you have, but looks at the U.S. and in particular looks at this U.S. team as a representative of this great country that they live in.
Yeah, you nailed it. That's what it is. And as we keep moving forward, more and more fans get into the game, and more and more fans have been born here, and it's going to evolve. It's great. All right, I got to ask you again. It was scrappy. One of the problems, and Eric Winaldo put out a piece a couple of weeks ago in the Guardian about it. We don't have a true nine, and it's probably because of the youth system, or whatever. We got some players that could be considered a true nine: Jesus Ferreira, Brandon Vasquez, Pepe, who obviously wasn't there. Who do you feel probably fills that role the best as that true number 9 for the USA?
I mean, this is changing as we speak, right? Because you got Pepe, who's now looking good and maybe needed some time. And just because Pepe's doing well now doesn't mean that he was the appropriate pick back then. And obviously, he wasn't picked to go to the World Cup. That's just the way that it works, and it's all subjective ultimately from a human perspective in picking these. But I agree with Eric in that there is a dearth of this position and this crucial position. Now, we're not alone in this quest for number 9. You look around the world, there's plenty of people, and there's a reason why these players are put on a pedestal. We put on a pedestal those that score goals because it's the most difficult thing to do in our game, and then even more of a pedestal those that are able to do it consistently. So there's a lot of countries that are screaming and yelling for a 9, and a 9. Let's be honest, one that is consistent. And when it's an Eric Winaldo or a Brian McBride or a Josie Altidore, these guys, yes, they had ups and downs, but for the most part, you knew that they were the opposition was going to have to worry about them. And it's been a long time, let's be honest, since we have had a U.S. player up top for the U.S. men's national team that has put the fear of God into the opposition, and that the opposition has really had to game plan for. The reasons, I don't know. I have no idea, because we are also in the most fertile and I would say positive moment when it comes to the depth that we have amassed and the talent that we have right now and the pathways, but we just can't seem to find that number 9. So who knows? Next man up. Maybe there's somebody waiting in the wings. Maybe there's someone that says, hey, this is my opportunity. If there ever was a moment to grab the opportunity leading up to 26, this is it. You want to be a big star and you want to be forever remembered? Do something well in a World Cup played in your home country. Believe me, I can attest to that.
Yes, you can. All right, let's talk about center backs. Something obviously very well. You've been around the world. You've played in a lot of leagues. You play at the highest level possible. One thing that's gotten me kind of confused in the last couple of years is the silly mistakes the center backs seem to be making. And last night, hear me out on this one. Yes, the Mexican goal was a bad pass by Kellen Acosta. He put it back. Aaron Long had to kind of get to it, but it looked like he kind of just tried to win the ball when, listen, 20 years ago, it used to be knock the snot out of the ball, put it into row Z, get everybody back, yell at Kellen Acosta for a bad pass, and let's organize. And Mexico don't want a breakaway. What has happened to center backs in today's day and age?
Look at you acting like a grumpy old man over there. I mean, what has happened is the game has fundamentally changed. I mean, there are moments in the game right now where I'm watching a game and I will look around and go, do you realize if I had ever even attempted or thought about even doing something like that, I would have been fired on the spot. But the game has changed, and I think center backs are now being put in positions that traditionally and historically they've never had to train for or be put in. Now, that in and of itself isn't necessarily a bad thing. The game changes, it evolves. Obviously, playing out of the back is a real thing, and it's not going anywhere. It is what a lot of people put up there as pretty soccer or evolved soccer. And then we can argue about that. But the reality is a lot of these teams want to do it. The interesting thing is, it's one thing if you're an elite team. It's another thing if you're a team that just wants to do it because that's the de jure type of thing to do, and you don't have the talent to do it. And even some of the greatest defenders, I mean, I just watched Maguire today for Manchester United get a ball from De Gea and mess up, and boom, they score a goal. So it can happen. But the risk reward out there, the balance has completely changed, and fundamentally how people think about that risk reward has changed. I don't necessarily, I don't hate it, because I actually think I would have loved to have been given that carte blanche, given that authority to risk and do the things that these center backs are doing right now. Because like you said, there was a time not so long ago when it was, look, get it out of trouble, put the fire out, and let's live to fight another day.
Yeah, there's still a need for that occasionally, but I think because center backs have been told to control the game so much, they don't see that focus of when to do it. And you're not wrong. One of the things today, De Gea, like you said, gave Maguire that ball, probably shouldn't have given it to him there with 3 men around him. It shows the lack of footwork that De Gea has that everybody wants in a goalie. I think last night, Sean Johnson showed his inability at his feet. He just did not look comfortable at all with the ball. Hit some passes, hit some clearances. So in order to play out of the back, you got to have a top goalie. And that's why Man City and Liverpool paid $70 million for Edison and Alisson, right? I don't think, and it kind of bring it back, is Matt Turner and Zach Steffen show that they might not be the best, but man, they got some good feet and some confidence, and they instill confidence in that back line in order to hold possession.
Yeah, I mean, you hit it on the head there, and that this is the new type of goalkeeping. It's not just shot stopping. It's not enough. And the irony is that, if I look back and think of Tony Meola, for example, Tony Meola was incredible with his feet. Even Nick Raimondo or something like that. These were guys that were really good with their feet, and they were born too early because they would be that much more valuable today, to your point, in goal, because that's what you want. And the reason why you want it is you are literally adding a player and therefore a numerical advantage back there if you have somebody that is able to do it. If you go and watch training, for example, either a training or even a warm-up before a game for goalkeepers nowadays, that little diagonal crossfield ball that goalkeepers now always hit to the outside back or the outside winger there, they do that on repetition over and over and over again. And yes, you have your elites that are able to hit 80-yard balls or drop kicks and that kind of stuff right on the money. But for the most part, as a goalkeeper, you better be good with your feet. Otherwise, time waits for no one and the game waits for no one. And this is the reality of the game right now. And if not, then you're still only playing with 10 field players as opposed to the potential of playing for 11. And if you're a coach from Arteta or Pep or anybody on down, another added player that can be part of that tactical grid, if you will, coming out, that is valuable.
Absolutely. All right, let's jump in. Let's talk about the Premiership. Arsenal leading the way. They've had a hell of a season. They have just been, for me, one of the best and most entertaining teams to watch this year. But they're doing what Arsenal typically do, right? They're kind of faltering. I think they're getting a little tired. They're cracking under pressure maybe a little bit here. What are your thoughts? You think they're gonna get to the end and cross the line as winners, or you think Man City's gonna lap them here?
I mean, so this weekend they could go up by 7 points, I think, but we all know that then they'd still have 2 games in hand because Man City's not playing it, and so it's going to be a little weird and wonky looking at the table. But when you see this Arsenal team, I mean, at this point, they just look like, rather than grasping a hold of it and saying we're going to win this, they're just waiting for that thing to happen.
Yeah.
And my good friend David Mossy, who I do the State of the Union pod with, a couple of weeks ago, he did the numbers and really kind of laid it out. And I hadn't thought about it like that, where they didn't need to lose games. They just needed to drop points. And with the games in hand, and obviously the head-to-head that Man City has, it gives an incredible advantage to Man City. Now, they certainly have to win out and still win those games. And this is a Man City that, rather than being the top dog now, they get to chase. And that's a much more comfortable position to be in, especially when you're chasing somebody like Arsenal that, as good as they are, and I completely agree, just from a pure aesthetic and entertainment perspective, they have been wonderful and worth the price of admission. But ultimately, it's all for naught unless you win that title. And it's there, and I feel like it hasn't necessarily been taken out of their hands, but it's rolling off the side of their hand right now, and they're just waiting for bad things to happen, as opposed to saying, no, we're not going to let bad things to happen. And maybe that's the ultimate difference between the Invincibles and this team, which we know are much more younger, much more naive, and trying to do these things.
Someone asked me a question the other day, and I'll tell you it was a Man United fan, and they said, listen, if Arsenal don't cross the line and win this Premiership this year, is it a disaster of a season? Is it a failure? I would love to hear your answer, and then I'll quickly tell you what mine is. But is it a failure of a season if they don't win?
It's a failure in that it was there to be had. It's one thing if it just wasn't there and it was a pipe dream, or you needed everything to go right. No, they didn't need everything to go right. It was there. And so the fact, if they were to let it slip, look, no shame in losing to a great team like Man City, which I think would obviously be the one that we're talking about here. But it's so close. So yeah, I think it would be a failure, but not like a failure where there's firings and you have to change everything, because this is a team that's on the ascension right now. I mean, this is a team that's going to get better. They have young players. They still got a lot of players that are out on loan, and even some American players and stuff. You never know what they're going to look like. I only think they're going to get better, but they kind of need to cap this right now. So I don't think that it is a failure. My friend Piers Morgan, I'm sure, would disagree with me. And I kind of, look, I don't care who wins anything like that, but just to see him melt down would be kind of fun if Arsenal didn't figure it out.
I said the same thing. I don't think it's a complete failure, but I actually think this is a growing experience. And the type of players that they have, that Arteta's brought in, the type of manager that Arteta is, they will use this. They are so young. I think in the next 2 or 3 years, even if they don't win this year, I think they win two titles, because they're bringing in players. They've got this system. and it is so fun to watch. They are not my favorite team, but I certainly enjoy watching them.
It's a good team. It's a good team, and it's a fun race to have, because we don't always have these types of races. And while Arsenal still is a storied elite type of club, they haven't been this for a while. And to have them kind of get back to the mount here, even if ultimately they don't cross over the finish line first, this is still good. It's still good for Arsenal, obviously, but it's also, I think, good for the EPL.
Absolutely, 100% agree. All right, MLS. Obviously, you are an MLS aficionado. You know the league inside and out. Are you enjoying the league? Are you enjoying the game so far this year? There's obviously been some big surprises. FC Cincinnati doing really, really well. Expansion team St. Louis coming in and running the way they've done, losing 1 out of 8. And then the Apple has taken over, and they've actually done, surprisingly, a really nice job. What are your thoughts on MLS and what Apple have been doing?
Okay, so they actually go together, both those things, because am I enjoying it? I'm enjoying it, but I'm not watching any games. I watch the 360 show, and I watch our game each week on Fox. Yep. And look, we knew that this was going to be not reinventing the wheel, but something that was trying to see around the corner and to do something very progressive and new and different. And MLS understood that going behind a paywall and the dangers of that. And, the money was great and everything. Look, I mean, you can watch an MLS game anywhere in the world without a problem just by pulling up your Apple app. That's incredible. I think the production, to your point, has been really, really good. So the aesthetic surrounding these games has been really, really good. The quality when you are actually watching it, just the actual quality of the broadcast has been good. They hired a bunch of talent, many people that I know, and a lot of them that are really, really talented. But this is also a work in progress. I think, that's the good part. The bad part, at least for me, and I have to separate myself a little bit, and maybe you're like this too, is that, we're going to follow this league no matter what. And I'm a junkie for it. Yep. And I'm a junkie for soccer. I'll watch anybody, men's, women's, co-ed, naked, doesn't matter. All right. Yep. By the way, co-ed, naked, that would be a really good league. We could really do something. Right?
Yes.
FIFA World Cup, co-ed, naked. Come on, we'll make some money. But, I want more windows, because it's gone in a blink of an eye. In that 5-hour window that we have on Saturdays, every single game is played. Like I said, I can watch a single game, but I want to see what's going on. So I watch the 360 show, which is very good, and they do a really good job, and I get it, but I don't watch the games that I used to. So I like what I'm seeing, but I'm not watching as much MLS as I've done in the past. I don't know if that's a good or bad thing. The other part, and the bigger part from a MLS perspective, is look, MLS's problem has never been that there aren't soccer fans, as you know, in the US. It's just there's not enough MLS fans. And so does this create more MLS fans? I don't know. We're never going to see the numbers, so we're never necessarily going to know. And yes, we have a deal in Fox where we have a game of the week, so there is that linear part of it, but it's obviously very minimal relative to the mass that Apple's done. And by the way, their shoulder programming, I think they've done a really good job of providing content and stories and doing all that. I just worry that it's out of sight, out of mind, and not enough people are seeing it. And then when we do see it, it's such a small window that poof, it's gone. And if you miss it, it's gone.
Yeah, that's the one thing I've been craving is it's just Saturday. I want a game maybe on Friday, and then 1 or 2 on Sunday, and then maybe one midweek. Like, I want more. But to your point, I really enjoy the 360. I think the panelists are awesome. I think the coverage is great, and they're only getting better. But as you said, it's early on. They'll get better, and maybe at some point they'll kind of start to pull it apart a little bit and put more games and string them out. We can only hope.
But you're like me, and maybe some of your viewers and listeners, you get to that Sunday afternoon, and the European leagues are done, and you got some NWSL here or there, but you're like, hey, you know what I could really use? I could really use an MLS game. I mean, even like Colorado, San Jose, I'll go for that. Just give me anything at this point, and you don't have it. And it, to a certain extent, it's comfort food, right?
Yes.
But I love it, and I need it, and I want it, and I'm a junkie, and I understand that I'm a consumer of the whole league. Yep. And, maybe I'm sure you've talked about this, the way the world is changing and the soccer world is changing is that I think there's much more of an affinity and a connection now that people have to their specific MLS team as opposed to the league as a whole. It doesn't mean they don't support it and they don't defend the league, but it's really a really much more tribal type of situation right now. And maybe that's the way it's going, as opposed to me, who kind of wants to just open up and say, and take all the league in, as opposed to a specific team.
You're really right. It is becoming tribal, and people are taking ownership of their team and their city. Obviously in Detroit here, we don't have a team, so I just try to consume as much as I can. But we do have a team here, as you know. I believe you're an owner, Detroit City FC. Do you catch up with the scores and any of the games when you can for Detroit City FC?
Oh, absolutely. I'll stream games and all that. And I know we got a big, Open Cup game coming up here against the Loons. And, we're going to bring them into Hamtramck, and we're going to, see what we can do there. And look, we've had success before when it comes to the Open Cup. And obviously Open Cup's a huge thing in terms of credibility and, being relevant, and especially national recognition if and when you do something big. And, that's a cool thing. I couldn't be, more proud of what Detroit is as a soccer city. Obviously, I grew up there, but also what it has become, and what has been done there on and off the field is wonderful. I also recognize, and I think everybody in Detroit would say the same thing, is that it could get so much bigger, and this is an incredible market that I don't think actually is even doing close to what it could do.
Right.
And
it's untapped.
So it's untapped. It's untapped. And, that to me, that hurts a little bit, because I want it to get as big as possible. And doesn't mean that I don't want it to retain its roots, and I don't want it to retain its wonderful, Detroit history and that whole personality that you know so well there. But I want it to get bigger, and I want to invite more people into what Detroit can be from a soccer perspective. But yes, I do follow the team. A little disappointed right now in Trevor and the boys and what's going on right now. But, as an owner, I also have to be patient, and I have to recognize that it's a long season, and certainly they've had success. But we also demand we demand quality when it comes to on and off the field for our team. And right now we're not quite seeing it, but I believe in the guys that they're going to get better as the season goes along.
Yeah, a little bit of a sophomore slump as they've entered the USL Championship, the second season here. A little bit slow start to the season, but I have no doubt Trevor will turn it around for Detroit City FC. Do you get back to Detroit often at all?
Every once in a while. Actually, I will be coming back for my 35th high school reunion. I went to Cranbrook up there in Bloomfield Hills, a wonderful school, and I was really lucky to be able to go there. And I played soccer up there, so it's been 35 years since I graduated. So I'm looking to come back this summer for my 35th reunion. Hopefully, it's on a weekend when there's a game, so I can get to a game, which would be very, very cool. I can say hello to all my friends and the people that aren't my friends. Whatever.
I say you've got kind of a split here in Detroit. Half love you and half hate you.
It's all right.
And they just hate anything associated with MLS. But
I know. Hey, listen, I get it. I get it. Yeah. If while we can scream and yell about this stuff, ultimately it comes from a good place. It comes from a place where, we were talking earlier about, taking ownership and that connection that happens, and that human element, that personal element of your team and your city. And, nobody wants to take that away from anybody. Even if things get bigger, you want it to retain its, to the extent that you can, its original personality. And I think that there's a way to do that while making that tent bigger, if you will, in Detroit. Because as you know, it's an incredibly interesting city and an incredibly interesting market and culture there when it comes to a lot of things, not the least of which is soccer.
Absolutely. All right. Speaking of friends, one of our co-hosts on We Are Soccer here, Nate, bumped into you, I believe it was a couple of years back at the coaches convention, and you guys were at the bar, you had a beer. He cannot stop talking about how nice of a guy you are, how down to earth you are. Nate rattles on about how you guys are like best friends. So do me a favor, tell me you remember Nate, and that'll keep him very happy.
Of course I remember Nate. Okay. Specifically, obviously the connection and everything. And look, I the conventions are really cool to kind of hang out and to talk to people. And I want to know what's going on. And I'm not everywhere. And I look at sometimes things from a 30,000 foot vantage point, and I don't see some of the stuff that is going on. And by the way, a lot of the good stuff, and I guess part of what I believe is that, through all the good and the bad that exists out there when it comes to soccer, it's mostly good. And there's incredible people, men and women on the field, men and women off the field, that are working so hard to push this boulder that is soccer in the United States up a hill. And whether it's Nate or you, just something that you're doing here, this is incredible what you're doing. And you are as important to anybody that's kicking a ball out there in terms of pushing this along. And look, it's a labor of love, but it's still a labor, and it's gotten a lot easier. You're a young guy, but back in the 1900s and before, when I was running around, things have changed. And as the saying goes, you've come a long way, baby, and we have. And with you and with people like Nate and others, so many others out there working day in and day out, sometimes we kick ourselves for what we haven't done or what we aren't. And every once in a while, we should, pat ourselves on the back for how far we have come in a relatively short period of time, and how good soccer really is. It can be better. We all understand that, but it's come a hell of a long way.
I couldn't have said it any better. It's come a long way, and trust me, people like yourself who keep pushing the game forward, keep pushing it and pushing it. It's growing, and it's only going to get better. So thank you for everything you do for the sport and for the local and the national level. We very much appreciate it. And Alexi, thank you so much for coming on We Are Soccer, man. It's been a blast.
Thank you so much. We'll do it again.
Absolutely. Take care.